The attack on Pearl Harbor U.S. outcome. Without the attack on Pearl Harbor, the U.S. would not have entered the World War II.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, we will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The facts of yesterday and today speak for themselves. With confidence in our armed forces, with the unbounding determination of our people, we will gain the inevitable triumph, so help us God. I ask the Congress declare that since the unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan on Sunday, December 7th, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
The U.S. and Japan have been edging toward war for decades. In 1940, the U.S. prohibited exports of steel, scrap iron, and fuel to Japan. We also froze Japanese assets from buying oil, which would cripple the army and make Navy and Air Force useless. Japan seized opportunity to take resources from the Southeast Asia. Japanese military proposed to sweep in places in addition to establish defensive perimeter in Central and Southwest. Japan was concerned that the U.S. Pacific Fleet in Pearl Harbor could ruin their plans, and they undertook to cripple fleet with a surprise air attack, which brought the U.S. toward war. With actual film caught on December 7, 1941, on the attack of Pearl Harbor and interviews from actual survivors, the making of the Pearl Harbor movie was very difficult to film, in which we know this movie was made primarily from people's memories. With this being an actual diary entry source from a reserve officer's daughter who has written, there was an announcement telling all reserve officers to report to their stations. People thought it was routine mobilization, so Dad went to the governor's office. After listening to the radio, they realized it was war, and the radio had kept saying, "Keep off the streets. Get your car off the streets. Do not use telephones. This is an order. Anyone refusing to comply with will be dealt by the army." She also has written, "We were asleep while the rest of the world was alert. We're paying for it." With these being authentic newspaper articles from the day of the attack, in which can provide insight on reports from Hawaii indicating the no warning of the attack. Following the attack, President Franklin D. Roosevelt addressed Congress declaring December 7th as a date in which we live in infamy. Following on that note, Franklin D. Roosevelt declared war against Japan, in which following our declare against Japan's Axis allies declared war, and, quoted from the New York Times article, "For the first time in history, the U.S. finds itself at war against powers both in Atlantic and Pacific."
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
This event single-handedly spurred the United States into joining World War II. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we'll be learning more about the attack on Pearl Harbor. The Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor was the culmination of 2 decades of friction that existed between those countries. Japan's increased efforts at expanding its territory created even more tension with major Western countries like the US, France, and Britain. An attack on China by Japan in 1937 was criticized by many members of the League of Nations and illustrated the Asian country's military might and readiness to use it. After World War II had started, efforts to deter Japan proved ineffective, and on September 27, 1940, the country signed the Tripartite Act to form the Axis powers with Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy, and gain even more power. This proved a direct threat to the United States, as the country was now in danger of attack on both its coasts. The U.S. made steps to prepare for war, but remained neutral. Japan continued their invasion through Indochina in 1940 and 41. Meanwhile, the United States tried to halt their progress by banning exports to the country, most importantly oil and raw materials, closing shipping lanes to their use, and other such tactics. Japan desperately needed U.S. oil, but the Americans demanded they leave China. Japan refused and decided swift military action was their only option. Negotiations finally stalled, and on December 1, 1941, Japan officially approved war against the U.S., Great Britain, and Holland. It was to begin with an attack to neutralize the U.S. Pacific Fleet in Pearl Harbor on Hawaii's Oahu Island. Japan hoped to take control of Southeast Asia without being impeded, and the attack was meant to accomplish this while also crushing American morale and neutralizing the U.S. so Japan could expand their conquests elsewhere. Battle began before Japan had formally declared war on the United States, making it a surprise attack. This left the Americans unprepared and scrambling to defend themselves. The attack took place in two waves, coming from both the air and the water. The first wave began just before 8 a.m. on December 7th, with the second coming an hour later. Though the attack only lasted 2 hours, by the time it was over, almost every American plane had been damaged, as had a number of other military crafts. 2 battleships, the USS Oklahoma and the USS Arizona, were completely destroyed. In fact, the Arizona remains underwater in Pearl Harbor as a memorial to honor those lost in the battle. The death toll of this attack reached over 2,300, including military personnel and civilians. Just 1 day later, the United States officially entered World War II, marking a turning point in this historic conflict.
The American people in their righteous might will win through to absolute victory.
I needed money and it put me to work. And I was on there from June of 40 until it was sunk. About a year and a half, somewhere. The night before we had a little crap game. And I won $60. And I had Liberty the next day, Sunday. So I was going to take a friend of mine from in the gun crew from Kentucky, and we were going to go ashore and celebrate in Honolulu. So I got up early and I went up and took a shower, and I come back and I was standing in front of my locker down in the turret, lower handling room, getting ready to change clothes, and we heard some grumbling going on, but of course we didn't know what it was. The chief turret captain come from all the way to chief's quarters up forward, come in the bottom of the turret, said the Japs are bombing us. So we started up through the turret to get up to our battle stations, and my battle station was up under, right up under the guns themselves. I had to put the primer in the breech block when they had it open, while they were loading the projectors with the powder. I put the primer in. Anyway, I was halfway up there on what they call the shell deck, where they stored the projectiles. When it blew up.
I didn't know that.
And it blew the lights out, and the emergency lights come on, but they weren't very good. But anyway, they were smoky.
Supposed to be with Abby?
And I went on up through and got in the gun room, and most of the gun crew was in the gun room then. And it was so smoky in there you could hardly breathe, but the people in charge thought that the smoke was coming in the side ports of the gun. And they said they figured the Japanese were gassing us.
What are you doing?
Well, it come out that the smoke was coming from below decks. The bomb had went down by turret 4 and exploded, and the smoke was coming from there and up through. So anyway, when they realized that and the strafe had kind of settled down, we went out on the starboard quarter deck and took people off that were burned. We've tried to put life rafts in the water, the big balsa rafts, 20 men. Some of them would hardly float without putting anybody in there. They've been painted so many times. But anyway, some of the people coming out of there were burned so bad. The uniform of the day was white shorts and t-shirts, and no protection from the flash burn. So the people that were below decks and up forward got the flash. People that I knew come out that I had been in the 3rd Division before I went in the gunnery office and in the turret. So some people coming out of there were burned so bad that you'd catch a hold of them, the skin would slip off, the other arm might be burned crisp, and they still knew, called me by name, and they were burned so much I couldn't even tell who they were.